Good morning. DZRJ 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines, proudly presents Piracy Watch with attorney Sarah Jane Sagitan, exploring the concepts of intellectual property rights and protection, teaching you how to protect what you create. And now, here is your host, Sarah Jane Sagitan.
Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Sarah Jane Sugitan. Joining me this morning in my program is political commentator and TV show host, Mr. Harry Tambuatco, who's going to comment and give his insights on intellectual property issues happening today all over the world. But before I give you Harry here, I'm going to start with some...
Good morning.
Good morning, Harry. I'm going to start with some news that the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines will be sponsoring. All right. The Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, or IPOPHil, opened its 8th satellite office in Cagayan de Oro last January 26. The launch was held at Region 10 headquarters of the Department of Trade and Industry. That brings up a total of 8 branches of the Intellectual Property Office all over the Philippines, including one in Baguio City, Angeles City, Pampanga, Legazpi City in Albay, Iloilo, Cebu, Davao, and General Santos. These satellite offices will now accept applications for trademarks or brand names and patent for inventions, utility models, and industrial designs. Now, Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines Director General Ricardo R. Blancaflor is set to attend the 6th Global Congress on Combating Counterfeiting and Piracy in Paris. The Congress opens tomorrow, February 2, to address the question of building respect for intellectual property in a balanced and sustainable way. The Congress is organized by the World Intellectual Property Organization, the Interpol, and the World Customs Organization. The Congress is being held under the high patronage of the President of the French Republic. Discussions will include the growing menace associated with internet trade and the role of corporate responsibility in nurturing respect for intellectual property. Moving on to our universities, the IPOPHil is calling on all universities to trademark your school seal. Representatives from the IPOPHil encourage universities to protect school seals as trademarks during a seminar workshop held at the Bataan Peninsula State University. According to an IPOPHil official, schools should register their seals as trademarks because trademarks are an important tool for commercialization. You know, once you have a school seal, Harry, you don't necessarily own it unless you register it. So if I open a school and I call it the Ateneo or the Lyceum in my province, even if it is not franchised from the school, it is not properly connected with the school. If it is not trademark, I can be allowed to use that trademark.
I don't understand that, attorney. You mean it's possible that there are still existing schools out there that are still ignorant of the word or the protection called intellectual property?
Yes, that's the case. That's
until now. So if they do, they can actually lose their titles, their brand titles. Now, that kind of ignorance is unacceptable because they actually charge fees for enrollment. They actually make a business either way. As much as they are an educational institution, they still have a title and a brand to protect because they are charging through enrollment and they're educating, but they're using a false brand or a brand that they don't even own. So it's like driving a car, but you don't, and going everywhere, but you don't have registration for your car.
Yeah, that's right. And it's possible that if your name is generic, and it is not registered as a trademark, I can put up a university that is not necessarily connected with the proper university and just use that name in order to increase my enrollment. It has happened to a couple of well-known universities using the name of a popular university. I'm not going to disclose the name, okay, because it will harm that university's reputation.
Attorney, when that happens, if the university all of a sudden, because it's a generic title, because a lot of them try to use the state title, the provincial title, and whatnot, can they come to you and in the intellectual property office and say, we have a problem, attorney, sasabihin nila sa inyo. Can you help them? Can you assist them when when something like that happens, because at that point there's really no turning back, especially if they've been operating, let's say, 10 years. Most especially those in the more rural areas. I'm not talking of big state colleges. I'm talking of the smaller independent private institutions that do reviews, that do whatever. They're just small educational institutions. And then ginamit nila eskwelahan ng mamansa, whatever, ng whatever area. So at that point, they're in trouble. Di ba?
Yes.
So what happens? Ilan mo, hindi ko pa rin maintindihan, attorney, bakit pumapayag din yung mga local governments when they give mayor's permits, di ba? Why don't they check? Even local government seems to be ignorant of branding and title ownership. Sa kanila, basta mabayaran sila ng permit, kumita na local government, okay na. Gee, di ba, in law, they say their ignorance is not an excuse. I mean, you tell me, you're of the legal profession, di ba?
Yes, definitely. Ignorance of the law excuses no one. And yet, the IPOPHIL is reiterating its call to all schools and universities to file for trademarks of your school seals. Because otherwise, you do not own that name. So anyone can use that university name and put up a university in a province or location where you are not yet present and claim no direct relation, and yet capitalize on the reputation that particular university is already
worse, attorney, they're making money out of it. They're generating an income called tuition. Hihingi ka ng tuition, hihingi ka ng, you're actually generating funds. Yung pala, you're using a title name that is not, kawawa naman, the students, they graduate. So many years later, they say, okay, I came out of Brand X school. Excuse me, Brand X no longer exists because they had to change the name to Brand Y. Now, in my records, or what you call that, CV, di ba, or biodata, syempre it will work against the student.
Of course.
Now, should that not be outlawed or legislated? It's amazing how much ignorance there is about intellectual property to the very day. Because we've discussed it many times on radio and TV, and I've read a lot of columns as well on it. And yet the awareness is still it's gargantuan, no?
Definitely. Yes, the task of awareness raising and public outreach is gargantuan. And hopefully all of you out there who have brand names, not only the schools, anyone who's put up a business and you're building up your reputation and goodwill, you have a name, register it with the IPO, with the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, so that you will own it. So otherwise, you're in trouble. It's against the public interest to have these kinds of cases wherein I'm not registered, and yet someone can use my name to my detriment.
Yun na nga. Earlier, when you were opening, you were talking about international issues on the internet. I didn't understand why the French... Well, I didn't pick up what you meant with the French government as well as the illegal use on the internet. Do you have to register issues? I guess you do, no? Even in internet.
Domain names.
The domain names.
Yes, the domain
domain names that you pay for because they charge for that. When you buy them, you pay in US dollars, whoever is selling it. So you have to even register that with IP.
Yes, you have to police the internet in many ways. And in fact, piracy and counterfeiting also occurs over the internet. It's a parallel universe that is quite hard to control.
I'm unaware of how there's piracy there.
Okay,
ginagamit nila? Pangalan?
Yes, we will dedicate a whole new
sige, mahaba yan. You have another guest here who walked in.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Mr. Michael Colim, Executive Director of the Animation Council of the Philippines Incorporated, or ACP, who's going to talk to us about the animation industry and their copyright concerns, if any. I hope there are, so that we can discuss them over the show. Good morning, Mr. Michael Lim. Welcome to the show.
Yes, good morning, Attorney Sarah.
Yes, okay. I'm going to just complete the round of news that the Intellectual Property Office wants everyone out there to know about. Mayor Jose Enrique S. Garcia proclaimed that the city of Balanga, Bataan, where I come from, will soon establish a unit dedicated to handling the protection and registration of the city's trademarks and patents. In a meeting with officials from the Intellectual Property of the Philippines, Mayor Garcia proposed that the IP unit will serve as the nerve center for IP protection. the Bataan provincial government is the registered owner of the certification trademark called Galing Bataan. You folks out there are probably familiar with certification marks. You see these marks created by provincial governments, like in general Santos City, and now in this particular case, Bataan. They put this Galing Bataan visual design on products such as fish products and other bottled delicacies. Yan, to make everyone know that these products originated from their province. Now, moving on to patents, the University of the Philippines in Manila signed a memorandum of agreement with the IPO-PHil last January 24 at the College of Medicine. This agreement aims to protect university research as patents. According to Dr. Reynaldo L. Garcia, director of the Technology Licensing Office of the UP system, he plans to streamline bureaucratic processes and make the UP system enterprise-oriented. Under the agreement, IPO-PHil will provide patent and other IP rights services to faculty, students, researchers, and extension workers in medicine and the life sciences. IPO-PHil Director General Ricardo R. Blancaflor envisions UP Manila to be the next University of Florida, which grew the Gatorade concoction into stardom. Did you guys know that this University of Florida owns the Gatorade patent? And so it's earning millions from the invention of one of its students, or I think professors. And until now, it's the one earning the royalties from the product. And I think it sold it somehow to a Pepsi group of companies. I have to check. But also, before commercialization, researches and inventions must first of all be registered and protected, according to Attorney Blancaflor. Yeah, that's right. So if you have any invention or any name that you want to own and on which you're making money out of, please do register them with the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. Their website is www.ipopphil.gov.ph. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the animation industry. So, and Mr. Michael Lim here will give us an overview of, one of my favorite cartoons is Nemo. And also, what else? There's the one after that, also by Pixar.
Up.
Up, yes. There are Filipino animators in those movies.
That's right.
Made that movies, right? So
Yeah, the one involved in Finding Nemo and Up is Ronnie Del Carmen. Ronnie Del Carmen is a Filipino now based in the U.S.
In the U.S. So we have many Filipino animators all over the world responsible for bringing, entertainment, not only locally, but all over the world. So globally, we have world-class talent.
Actually, a few years back, Jess Española, also a Filipino, based in the U.S., won the very first Emmy for The Simpsons.
For The Simpsons. So he's also part of the group that created animation for The Simpsons show.
Yes, he's the assistant director.
Okay.
And then I think recently, we're not yet, we don't have the details yet, but recently there's another one, a second Filipino who won an Emmy for an animation in the States.
Are these people members of the Animation
Well,
Council
they are
of the
individuals. Animation Council of the Philippines basically is an association of different animation companies and animation schools. So it's company-based. Our mandate is company-based. We're not really for the individuals. However, there's another group coming up which will cater to the needs of the individual animators, freelance animators.
So Animation Council is like an umbrella organization
That's right.
for many companies.
Exactly.
But they also have to be Filipino because it's
Exactly,
Animation Council
yes.
of the Philippines.
So
this
all
is
our members are really Filipino companies.
All right. Okay, we're going to bring you back Mr. Michael Lim and Mr. Harry Tambuatco after this short break. Please stay with us.
We now return to Piracy Watch on DZRJ 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines. Here is your host, Sarah Jane Sigitan.
All right, welcome back, folks, to Piracy Watch. I'm your host, Attorney Sarah Jane Sugitan. Joining me this morning, and we're talking about cartoons, is Mr. Michael Lim, Executive Director of the Animation Council of the Philippines, and Mr. Harry Tambuatco, TV talk show host and one of the pioneers of the animation industry in the Philippines. Apparently, I've just discovered the connection.
Well, I'm not sure I can be one of the pioneers, but I was involved. Because I knew a lot of the foreigners way back in 1981 or 1980. Burbank came in and they didn't realize how many great artists we had. It was in Perea Street in Legazpi Village. It was a company of maybe 50, 70 people. And all the real animators were actually Australians.
That's right.
A couple of Americans. And they were attracting initially some small animator contracts around the world, but Hanna-Barbera was very interested. The Marvel group was very interested, and at that time,